Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 17, Episode 18, Schooled. So we start out with two young boys who are cheating at a rubber duck race. Looks to me like they're a couple of quacks. They set sail but soon encounter a little obstacle. It's a dead body. Back in the squad room, McGee is telling Bishop and Torres about how he was invited to his 20th college reunion, but he can't go because he has to help Delilah potty train the twins. Thrilling. Bishop tries to console him by telling him that reunions are overrated anyway. Sure. The team heads to the crime scene and discovers the body of Petty Officer Jeremy Whistler. McGee goes through the guy's phone and they find a very threatening voicemail and have to figure out who it came from. We then cut to Sloane listening to the voicemail in her office when Faith walks in. I'm kidding. I started to speak and then I just started crying. Faith thanks her again for filling out those medical forms and reveals that her and her fiance are trying to have a baby but are encountering some fertility problems. So Faith has been trying to collect her medical history so she can take it to the doctor to sort things out, but Sloane's just really happy she's not dying. Sloane says that if there's anything more she could do, she'd be happy to help. And there is one more thing, actually. Faith wants to know who her father is. We cut back to the squad room and the team is looking through Whistler's file. They see that he was an A+ student at the tech school he attended, he was a scout leader, he volunteered with animals and at a soup kitchen, and he was just kind of like a modern day saint. They bring his wife in and she just kind of reiterates the same thing and says that he would never be into anything shady. In Vance's office, Sloane walks in and she's super distressed. She tells him that Faith wants to know who her father is, and Vance already seems to be very aware of the gravity of the situation. This scene just has such a strong energy to it that my mom texted me during it and said, "Is Vance the father?" Meanwhile, McGee and Torres head over to the school Whistler attended and trace the voicemail back to his former lab partner. Jeremy has now been replaced by like a much more annoying lab partner, so just keep that in mind. His old lab partner reveals that she left Jeremy the message because she caught him hacking into students' financial records. It turns out that Whistler was actually a notorious hacker. In fact, he was on FBI Cyber's 10 Most Wanted. In autopsy, Palmer finds a knife wound that would be kind of impossible to hide from Whistler's wife, so Palmer thinks that the wife knows more than she's letting on. Bishop and Gibbs track her down and she admits that yes, Whistler was stealing people's financial information, but it was only to cover their daughter's very expensive medical bills and he hadn't been hacking for quite some time now. She also reveals that the person who stabbed him was his best friend, Tay Tanner. Casey figures out that the friend who stabbed him was also his partner in hacking. She also manages to crack his location by finding his Instagram and realizing that he posts a picture at the exact same ice cream shop every single day. Just out of curiosity, how long were the FBI looking for them? So Torres and McGee go to the ice cream parlor to wait for the best friend. McGee starts talking about how he's actually too embarrassed to go to his reunion because a lot of the people he graduated with are now super like rich, successful CEOs and he's just not that. But Torres tells him that he should actually be really proud of the work he does, and it's actually just very sweet. It's really nice. The best friend then like struts out of the ice cream parlor and sees them and starts to sprint away. But even though this guy has had like a pretty substantial head start, McGee actually catches up to him and captures him. So I guess McGee is Popeye and Spinach is Torres not bullying people. Back at NCIS, Gibbs notices that Sloane seems really off and goes to talk to her in her office. Sloane tells the story of how she was really drunk at a college party and she had asked someone she trusted to take her home and he ended up sexually assaulting her. She ended up dropping out of school over it and then 6 weeks later found out that she was pregnant. After Faith was born, she joined the army to try and get her life back on track and then she tested into PSYOPs and yeah, you know, we are where we are now. Gibbs wants to know the man's name and Sloane says she's not going to give it to him because Gibbs is going to murder him. Torres then comes up and brings Gibbs down to interrogation. The friend says he stabbed Whistler because all of the money in their shared account suddenly went missing, but he wasn't the one that murdered him and has an alibi for that night. In the squad room, Gibbs kind of like raises his voice at the team a little bit and then storms away. And then the team is like, oh my god, like what happened? He seems so angry, he seems so upset. But to be honest, he just kind of like was like a little louder than usual. I don't understand like what they're all talking about. This would have just been like an average Tuesday in season 3. Sloane then goes to Faith's father's house and confronts him. She tells him that a woman will come to his door in a few days and ask him for his medical history, and he will give it to her because she has half of his DNA. And Sloane says that after that he will make no attempt to contact her. And he's like, you know what, actually, if I want to talk to her, I'll talk to her. Just in case you forgot in the last 3 seconds that he's an enormous but then Sloane punches him so hard I don't know how her shoulder is still attached to her body. Bishop and McGee head over to the tech school. McGee brings up that Torres said he saw Sloane and Gibbs fighting earlier, and Bishop wonders if maybe they're breaking up. McGee is like, I don't want to think about them dating in any capacity, it freaks me out, though I don't know how he's not used to everyone around him just shacking up at this point. But then they walk into the school and see that the whole thing has been cleared out. McGee figures out that the school hasn't been paying their bills and that all the items have been repossessed. They then theorize that the school is a scam and has probably been conning students out of all their loan money. It then turns out that Whistler wasn't behind this after all. Hey, remember that annoying lab partner from earlier? Surprise. They arrest him and they figure out that Whistler actually had given up his life of crime and was actually blackmailing this other guy into keeping the school alive and not conning the students. They also very casually mention that they don't know where Gibbs has been, and based on the fact that he threatened to go beat the shit out of a guy only a few hours ago, I guess everything's fine. Nothing to be concerned about at all. Faith goes to meet Sloane at a coffee shop. Faith says that her father gave her her medical info, but she could tell that something wasn't quite right. Faith kind of pieced together what might have actually happened, and Sloane explains the whole situation to her, what honestly did happen. And we close out the episode with Faith telling Sloane that she gave her a wonderful life. And that is Schooled. I was not walking into this episode expecting it to be one of my favorites of the season, but here we are. I love Sloane and her daughter's relationship, and I just kind of love Sloane as a character. This storyline has really been sprinkled out the last like season and a half ever since and I feel like every time they bring it up they really add a solid new element to it, and I'm so intrigued because I really never know where they're gonna take it next. I love Sloane. Please give Sloane more screen time. Please continue to give her these really developed arcs. I thought there was like a really interesting parallel with Sloane talking about how she thought she might be too damaged to give her daughter a good life, and that was a very similar conversation we just had with Tiva a couple episodes ago, and yes, the contexts of the comment are very different. The sentiment was the same, and just them talking about the lengths that they have gone through to protect their daughters, I would love to have seen a conversation about that, or like a moment revolving around that, and I just, you know, if by some miracle we ever get Tiva back, I would love to see a really nice solid scene between Sloane and her. Gibbs. Where was he? Because we did have a episode a little bit ago where it was maybe hinted at that he could have had something to do with a man's murder, and I wonder if maybe Gibbs was behind the scenes making sure everything went well when Faith went to talk to her father. I would not be surprised if he kind of went a little bit rogue to ensure that the transaction went smoothly. I'm really curious to see if they keep building upon that plot line of him taking matters into his own hands a little bit. Can we just take a moment to appreciate Torres in this episode? Because, hello, it was so nice to see this aspect of him where he was just genuinely like cheering McGee on, and it was so like wholesome and sweet. We still got to see the other side of Torres where he was like sarcastic and messing with the team and just kind of like doing his own thing, but that wasn't all we got to see of him, which was really nice. I feel like Torres can be a really kind, compassionate friend. Like I feel like that's his thing, is that he's very like fierce in his emotions, and it's really nice to see that in a way that builds up McGee's confidence, that like builds up his relationship with the team. I hope they continue to find a way to like balance those aspects of his personality, because I think it was on like a solid track this episode. There was a small moment with the whole reunion thing where Bishop was talking about reunions kind of sucking a little bit because it's just people reminding you who you used to be, and it harkens back a little bit to last episode where she was talking about how she's not the same person and she's evolving and she's training with Odette. yeah, that's happening. I'm really interested to see where they continue to go with this arc. I don't really know much about it at this point, except that it's kind of having like an emotional toll on Bishop. Also that she's just like can kick more ass now. So, you know, good for her. Dare I say, I'm interested to see if there are any Tiva elements incorporated into it at all. Not holding my breath for that one, but nonetheless, I'm still really interested to see where they take that. Sloane and Vance. What's happening? I really adore their friendship. It just has this almost bizarre energy lingering in the background of all of it, where I feel like they're not going to make out, but they did make out at some point. Even with that in mind. I do really like the way that they care about each other, and I would like to see their friendship continue to grow and more scenes with them, because I think that's really lovely. When are we gonna see Delilah and the twins again? Because it's been far too long. I just miss them. I love Delilah. I want to see McGee's kids. We keep hearing about these moments and these situations he's going through as a father, and I just really kind of want to see some of them too. One final note I have on the episode is Gibbs Ranch, because he is dressing this episode. Anyway, in other news, it appears we only have 2 episodes left of the season due to the fact that they had to suspend filming due to the current COVID-19 situation. I'm sure you're all very aware of it. From what I understand, they're just kind of cutting filming off where they ended, which would have been episode 20, and then starting next season right where they left off. I'm really curious to see how that affects not only this season, but next season. I very much understand why they did it, and I think it was a good choice. But I'm also a little bit afraid how this will affect the momentum of some of the storylines we're working on, because like there's a bunch happening concurrently and I don't want to mess up that momentum, I guess, because we have the whole thing with Sloane and her daughter, we have Bishop and Odette, we have Gibbs maybe going rogue or whatever's happening there, and then we also the Canadian drug dealing storyline. I just don't know when that's supposed to come back. I don't know if it's coming back. I thought it was. I could have sworn I read something somewhere that they had intended to bring it back. I don't know if something's changed. I don't know if they're saving it for a future season. I don't know if in season like 37 they're gonna be like, hey, remember that storyline we introduced 20 years ago? Do you think we should talk about that again? The closest thing that I can think of to compare this to is the writer's strike, which I think happened during season 5 of NCIS. I believe I read somewhere like a while ago that due to that whole situation they ended up having to take out certain plot lines they planned on including. So I'm hoping that's not the situation. It might be, which I understand. I'm actually just really so interested in all the storylines we have going on right now that I don't want to lose any. And that's it. Nothing else has really happened.
Boss, it's Denozo. I haven't spoken to Ziva in a little while. She's been quarantined with Tali. If you hear from her, can you get back to me?
I just don't know what I'm supposed to say. Can you imagine if you're just walking through the streets of New York and that's happening behind you? Now that this season has kind of been cut short, years ago I used to do like top 10 lists or like commentary videos on like specific themes or storylines of the show. I don't know, I used to have a lot of fun making those, so I'm thinking maybe doing that again. I don't know. Now that this season is ending, I guess, more abruptly and quicker than we thought, please leave any suggestions you have below. If there's an episode I didn't review before, that might be fun to review, or re-reviewing an episode or like a certain top 10 list. I would love to redo some of my top 10 lists because some of them I made like 7 years ago and obviously 7 seasons have happened since then. There are some new moments we need to talk about. Please let me know your guys' thoughts on the season, where we're going now that we're kind of cut off a little bit, what you think of all these storylines that are happening right now. And with that, I will see you guys for the recap and review of the next episode. Just in case you've ever wondered how long the raw footage for these videos are, Titanic has been playing in the background as I've been filming this video. I started filming around the time they were boarding the ship, and now the entire bottom level is pretty much underwater. So that's where we're at.